That's the fleet, now well on the way out of the harbour to open water. What an exciting start. And once outside, they face a 6-foot swell and 30-knot winds. It promises to be the fastest race ever. With race action underway, who better to preview the forthcoming jousts than Ian Worth, skipper-owner of High Noon out of Kieta. Ian's yacht High Noon took line honours last year. Here Robert Hogan gets Ian's outlook.
Ian, I'm wondering whether you can give us a bit of an outline on the competitive team you have with you this year, and also who will be your main opponents from Rabaul.
Our main team would be Windstar, Tethys and ourselves, and with an outside chance would be Triad and Tiari. The main competition is Aerial, Night Crossing and Keysheater from Rabaul.
Right, and there's one or two other yachts that are in the harbour at the moment that look like causing a few problems, particularly in these conditions. Can you tell us a little bit about them and how they might affect the two-team race as we see it?
Well, I don't know, it won't affect the teams, but for line honours, can't see anybody beating Incantation.
How do you see your particular boats in comparison to the boats from Rabaul in these conditions when it comes down to the final results, taking their ratings into account?
If it had been light conditions, I don't think we had a chance this year against the Rabaul handicap boats. But with these better windier conditions, Windstar, Tethys and ourselves may do a bit better.
Right, I noticed you dropped the word in better a couple of times there. You're obviously quite happy with the conditions of today. We wish you the best of luck. And with the Rabaul team, fairly competitive team, and coming from Rabaul, we'd have to be hoping that they finish up front. But you guys have got the score on the board, and we wish you all the best of luck for the day. I've just spoken to Ian Worth, skipper of High Noon, and his 3 crew members. Ian's boat High Noon took out line honours in last year's Rabaul Kavieng yacht race, and Ian's given us some indication on how they hope to keep the winning edge. What we should do, and it's only fair, is have a talk to their challengers, or one of the challenging teams from the Rabaul Yacht Club. We're here at the Rabaul Yacht Club with the crew of Keysheater and skipper of Keysheater, Mr. Jerry Cooper. Also have Mark Bartlett on my left and Barney Boland on my right. I wonder, Jerry, if you could give us a few ideas that you have up your sleeve in how you're going to contend with the strong Kieta team this year.
Well, what we're really hoping for is a reduction in the wind speed. If the wind goes down a bit, we should have a good chance on the handicap positions, but with winds at this sort of speed, then Kieta must be favourites with Windstar, a 42-footer, and High Noon, a 30-footer, which they're both very quick boats, and I'd say we'd have problems on handicapped in this sort of condition.
I'd concur with that.
Excuse me, sir, you're a Kieta man, are you?
Yeah, from Kieta, yeah.
Your name is?
Faster the better.
Faster the better. You're on what yacht, sir? Windsail. I hear you're very vocal there this evening. I presume you're very confident about taking this event out.
No, we're not confident about taking it out, but for a boat like Windstar, more wind the better.
Right.
Big boat.
You look like having between 50 and 20 knot winds tomorrow.
Listen, if it's 50 knots, I'm staying here.
What's your fellow crewmen think about that? We've got plenty of beer here to keep you going. We'll leave the sailing to the Rabaul boys. They've probably got a bit more go.
We'll be happy. 50 knots and Rabaul boys will be here as well. I'll give you that.
Do you know any of these guys, Jerry?
Never seen him before in my life.
You'll never see him again.
No, I won't say that. No.
Lani, I'm wondering whether, is this your first time in the Rabaul Kavieng?
As a matter of fact, it's not. I've sailed this race once before in a boat even smaller, if that's possible, than Keysheater. But we didn't have these fresh conditions, so I think this is going to be a novel experience. One thing I'd like to say about the Kieta team, you'll notice they're taking full advantage of the free hospitality here, and we hope they continue to do so and really get stuck into it. Then we think our chances will improve as the night goes on.
Jerry, how do you think you'll go on handicap with the Hood's rating? Do you think that'll bring you into contention?
Well, the handicap system is, of course, fair to everybody, supposedly so. And we are all rated using the same dimensions, measurements, weights, etc. So I think the only thing that will affect the race as normal is the crew's performance. And as has already been mentioned, if you've got half a keg of SP inside you and we haven't, then maybe we've got a better chance on handicap, albeit Hood's rough rating or the SP handicap.
Well, from prediction of who the winner will be, the measure of how well prepared these boats and their crews are depends on what happens out on the racecourse. Just before we get a summary of race action, let's get the story of long-time racer Dave Brown and a yacht named Landseer.
Here we are in Simpson Harbour on Tulili with a Rabaul identity that's been in most of the Rabaul Kavieng yacht races, Dave Brown. Dave, I'd like you to give us a few of the stories that you've got up your sleeve from some of the past races that you've been in.
Well, of course, undoubtedly there will be a lot that I don't know, but the series of the Kavieng yacht races, the inaugural event, in fact, some 15 odd years ago, caused quite some consternation about with the die-hard sailors, the men, of course, because in that inaugural event, one visiting American took an all-female crew on a boat called Landseer. The boat itself was then about 60 years old, and of course the die-hard gentlemen sailors poo-pooed the whole event. But to the consternation of all and sundry, when the flag had dropped, we found that at the other end, Landseer had won by a comfortable margin. And of course, relationships between men and women sailors at that stage were probably at an all-time low. An item that comes to my mind was in my own boat, which I had finished building at that stage. It was a boat called Whanalua, my wife and I built. And as we were approaching the finish line in Kavieng, the yacht, which was rather hastily completed, had a little bit of difficulty with the deck equipment, and one of my crew accidentally got his hand caught in the genoa sheet on the winch as it was being sheeted on. Well, of course, it was a very, very tense time, quarter of a mile from the finish line. Mike Thurston's boat, Destiny, not a couple of feet to one side of us, and the pressure was really on. Well, from my first participation in the event, I was not inclined to have this guy sort of free off the sail to remove his hand. So we finished the last half a mile of the race with this guy's hand still firmly entrapped in the genoa sheet wrapped around the winch.
Well, before we wind up, Dave, I'm wondering whether you can recall any very funny incidents that have taken place in the race. From what I'm told, I haven't experienced one yet. There's quite a bit of enjoyment and relaxation takes place after the race at Kavieng. Are there any things that you might recall that come to mind instantly that you might be able to tell us about?
Well, perhaps not so much on the funny side, but I'm led to believe that, and this is one that I don't actually recall for obvious reasons, but it's brought to my attention that when I in fact won the race, the second race, that the inclination towards imbibing in alcohol sort of took such a strong hold of me that when I was finally presented with the trophy, I sort of clung to it very strongly between my arms against my bosom and wept ferociously in case anyone was going to take it from me. But other than that, so far as the humour is concerned, I think that's all involved in the cruise. most years that I've been involved, there's always been quite a healthy banter after the formal radio skits, be it musical renditions of popular songs made appropriate by the names of boats and sailing and events that are happening, in a little bit of form of humour and ridicule towards the other competitors and such like. And that's always been a source of entertainment and a little competition within itself. And anyone that doesn't have a good time in Kavieng, well, I think it's probably their own fault.
Thank you.
Coming up, final race action at Kavieng. We have a sail on the horizon. It's Incantation coming into Kavieng Harbour. Incantation took the longest route, right outside the main island, entering Kavieng Harbour from the top end. There are two routes into Kavieng. One, the more usual passage through Albatross Channel, or the approach from the north, as Incantation skipper David Ratner has chosen. Albatross is narrow and at times shallow, making night passage for a first-time through skipper a dicey proposition. Ratner must have known he had a comfortable lead and could afford the added time. By coming in this early in the day, there's no doubt that Incantation has smashed the old record. Here she makes a turn to pass the finishing buoy on her port side as required. She's got a protest flag up, and we'll find out more about that in a moment. We have Tethys from Kieta coming in second. Must have been a very exciting race for them. She's got a large head sail up, all the reefs out of the main, and she's coming up to the finish line at quite a pace. Most of the yachts have crossed the line at speeds of 5 to 8 knots. Tethys is now coming up to anchor. Incantation is already at anchor. She has set the fastest time in the race's history of 19 hours 37 minutes, an average speed of 8 knots for the course. It's unlikely this record will be beaten. Ratner says he could have cut an hour off his time had he come through Albatross, but perhaps if he's around next year, he'll have a shot at breaking his own record. Tethys and Incantation anchored, High Noon and Ariel approached fast. Ariel flying a spinnaker, setting up for a very close finish for these two. High Noon, a fiberglass Nolex 30, not quite 2 years old, and Ariel, a Lidgard 32. Shuttleworth's tactic of flying his head sail under the spinnaker worked, as at this stage Ariel's got the edge on High Noon. But not for long. Now Ariel starts to heel over so far that this has got to cost her time. With the wind close on the beam, Shuttleworth should have dropped his spinnaker or the head sail to keep his edge on High Noon. This may have cost Ariel a placing. High Noon, 3/4 fractional rig, 30-footer, and here she's moving right along. A very, very fast boat for her size. Coming into Kavieng Harbour, Ariel was cruising at her maximum hull speed, 7 knots. Everything looks good, but as we'll see, High Noon falls past her. There's High Noon with the spinnaker up now and running a head sail underneath. She edges out Ariel over the line with less than a minute between them, but it was a great race for both of them, and certainly an exciting finish. To wrap up the race action, here are the placings. As we've seen, Incantation took line honours. Second was Tethys. Third, High Noon. Fourth, Ariel. 5th, Windstar. 6th, Talili Bay. 7th, Triad 2. 8th, Keysheater. 9th, Night Crossing. And finishing up the rear, the radio boat, Tiari. Obviously, the wind conditions favoured the larger yachts, and consequently, the 50-footer being the biggest boat, was as expected, first over the finish line. The smaller boats, Keysheater and Night Crossing, finished in 26.5 hours and 27 hours respectively. The high wind, the main reason for the great range of racing times, has only been encountered once before, during the very first running of the Rabaul Kavieng yacht race.
No boat race is ever won until the finish line is crossed. And as always with this sport, the element of surprise, whether it be the weather, the currents, or the human factor, whatever, the unexpected determines the mettle of the competitors, and usually the winner. In this year's Rabaul Kavieng, the combination of the weather and the keen competitiveness made the race exciting and introduced an element of competition not seen in other years. Coming up are a series of interviews that bring to light these factors.
The Kavieng Club, and we've had a morning of excitement and tension while 2 protests are being heard relating to the race. I have with me Mr. Jeff Stevenson, Chairman of the Protest Committee. Jeff, I'm wondering whether you could firstly outline the 2 protests that were submitted to you and give us an idea or tell us which boats were involved and the outcome of the protest.
Right, well the first protest involved the yacht Incantation and the yacht Windstar. Windstar protested Incantation over a infringement on the start line under Rule 33.2, which is a port and starboard rule, a collision of yachts under the yacht racing rules. The second protest was also a port and starboard infringement between the yachts Ariel and Incantation. Incantation lodged this protest against Ariel for a port and starboard infringement on the way out of the harbour. The protest meeting was held, firstly Windstar versus Incantation, and I'll just consult my notes if I may. We found that both boats were approaching the start line on a port tack. Windstar got into difficulties as she lost the clue of her jib, and she lost the jib. So she then came, from what we could see, head to wind. Incantation was above her, and in attempting to avoid Windstar, she lost momentum, lost steer each way, and had nowhere to go but to fall back away from the line, and in doing so she fouled Windstar's stern. The protest committee found that the collision was minor and unavoidable, and in that instance we dismissed the protest and found that the port starboard rule did not apply in this situation. The other protest, aerial versus, or incantation rather, versus aerial, it was a clear case of port and starboard. The problem was to ascertain whether contact had been made. After we'd called several witnesses from each side, after our initial discussions with the skippers, it was ascertained by the protest committee that a contact had occurred, in which case we had no alternative but under Rule 36 and Rule 33.2 to disqualify the yacht aerial.
Thanks for that. That's covered what we were looking for, an explanation of, and I dare say most of the people here that have been sitting around for most of the morning waiting to hear what the results were and what the decision has been. Thank you. Here we are with Graham Shuttleworth, skipper of Ariel. Graham and his crew were involved with a protest that was lodged last night by one of the other yachts, and the end result after a hearing this morning was that Graham's yacht was disqualified. I should imagine you'd be quite a disappointed man at the moment, Graham. I'm wondering whether you could give us some idea of your feelings and the events that led up to the disqualification of your yacht.
Yes, Bob. We certainly are very disappointed. In view of the fact that Ariel sailed very hard from the start, from the very start of the race, and we were in it to win it, of course, and we sailed very hard, and our tactics were maybe a bit hard. Under the conditions, the boat performed excellently. I realised that the decision made by the committee was made based on the maritime law and the yachting race rule. I just would like to emphasise that certainly we are disappointed in view of the fact that the other yacht protested in a way which I could see would be of no possible benefit to themselves. But from what motivated them, we can't understand. But it's unfortunate that we were just caught in that kind of situation at the time.
Right, thanks, Graham. We were talking to you earlier on before the race, and as you told us, you had actually taken out handicap honours in the previous event. And as you've already pointed out, I should imagine you and the crew would be disappointed that that wasn't the case again this year. Thank you.
From a disillusioned Graham Shuttleworth, we go to Wally Sanger, skipper of Windstar. The yacht involved in the other protest was incantation. Wally's comments bring forth another aspect of this year's race, that the organisers may have to take a second look before next year's race.
I'm wondering if you can give us some idea of the result of it and what your feelings were on the protest and the outcome of the protest.
Basically, I feel that there really was no decision, and I will be appealing. And I'll leave that up to the PNG Yachting Federation to determine what the ruling should be.
Why, when we have a panel that's convened this morning and has made a decision, or they believe that they've made a decision, that you don't abide by that decision?
It's not a question of abiding by it. You have courts of appeal in any free country. I don't think that you have to go by what one court has to say. I think that's freedom, democracy. I think that's good.
Fair enough. We'll leave you to your drinking, and thank you very much. Personalities are what gives yacht racing much of its interest. Here we have two men, one from the strong Kieta racing team, and the other an outsider selling a world-class racing yacht. But perhaps their different views indicate that there was much at stake in this year's race. David Ratner, skipper of Incantation, and one of his crew members, Dave Brown. David is the man that's been involved in the centre of the two protests that were lodged this morning, the results which we have heard. David, I'm wondering if you could give us your ideas on the protests, how they came about, and the result.
Well, I think the protest came about because there are specific rules in yachting which happen to be, which keeps you from having collisions and having damage and having people killed. And unfortunately, on one occasion, one of the rules was transgressed, and I'm reasonably happy with the way the committee happened to rule on it. And I feel it's unfortunate that one of the yachts did not take the prescribed penalty, which was 2 360s in a row, to vindicate themselves. Otherwise, I think I'm going to write a book on how to become a pariah in a yacht club after the first race.
This is your first race, and it looks like you've taken out line honours. Thus, you're really in the hot seat, I dare say. You're an outsider. You're virtually blown in the wind in your yacht. You look like you're going to take the event out. You put in two protests. One which has caused the disqualification of a yacht that is from Rabaul and has won the event before. I dare say there will be a few people around that will be looking at you as a bit of a nigger in the woodpile.
Well, that was somewhat exactly what I was saying. Unfortunately, the other protest was lodged against myself, and again, I feel that it was, handled by the committee. And once the committee rules, I mean, you can go out and attempt to do an appeal. But this is basically a fun race, and it was given to us as a fun race, and it takes some of the fun out when you attempt to become legalistic about your approach to sailing. Sailing's supposed to be enjoyable, have a camaraderie, and on our crew, we had a good time, and we drank some beer together and told some nasty jokes.
Right, David. If you're around in these waters next year, would you be a participant in the event again?
I think I'd be blacklisted.
Blacklisted. Dave, congratulations on your sail, and we hope to see you back here again in these waters next year. Not everyone is out to win. There is also a fun side to racing. In this final interview with John Clark of Kieta, skipper of Tiare, he confirms this. John's got a bit of a story behind his yacht in that he built it himself. They were the radio boat in this year's Rabaul Kavieng. John, I'm wondering if you could tell us briefly about your yacht, your construction of it, and your impressions of the event this year.
Well, the yacht Tiare, Bruce Roberts designed, 36-foot steel cutter-rigged boat. Started building it 1980 on Bougainville. We launched it in June of last year. This is the first big race that we've been in. We've been in a few very short races on Bougainville. We didn't really know what to expect as far as winds went, but we knew we had a very heavy boat, and we knew that we had a boat that was very undersailed as far as sails went. We had a main, and we had a very small Yankee. We didn't expect to do anything. We came over here with eyes on the flares and the dive torch, which was last over the line, and we won it.
Right, you obviously enjoyed it, and you were happy with the performance of your boat?
Basically, we took it as a cruise. We didn't, apart from the start where we got fairly frantic, the rest of the race we took it as a cruise. We're fairly relaxed on deck. We had 6 as a crew. We had 3 women, 3 men. Most of the night stuff was done by the guys, and the women during the day they took over the tiller, but they also cooked and looked after downstairs. But I think we can say we had a really good time, and
Yeah, it was great to get here in the end.
Really?
I'd like to add that it was about a 23 stubby trip, and it was great all the way. Yeah.
Right, it sounds like you guys thoroughly enjoyed yourself, and we'd like to think that you'll be back here again next year competing in the same event. That's the running of the 16th Rabaul Kavieng yacht race. And it certainly wasn't the type of race that everyone expected. The fresh conditions made the sailing exciting, and as we have seen, controversial. Race results are Incantation, line honours, Tethys second, High Noon third. Under the Hood's rough rating handicap system, the winners of the Wills Cup was Tethys, second was High Noon, with Triad 2 coming in third. The team's event went to the strong Kieta Sailing Club. Given the situation, Kieta dominated this year's race. Keysheater, skippered by Jerry Cooper, being the only Rabaul yacht to take out a trophy. On behalf of the race committee from the Rabaul Yacht Club, I would like to thank the sponsors: Timber Sales, Farmset Epiglass, Alamotors, Pacific Helicopters and Talair. And a special thanks to the Kavieng Club and Alison Gross for their hospitality.